Can you give me some examples of how students have led and how they have led in IRP projects and ELP projects in the classroom, outside of the classroom, and through independent initiatives of their own?
I think understanding just how special this is, this opportunity, and not wanting to spoil it by taking over the leadership or the authority. So again, really empowering the students and the faculty so that together and collectively they're co-creating courses. The courses that we don't have and the students have an interest in, empowering them to design and lead their own courses, and finding then faculty and people to complement what it is that they're trying to learn and uncover and master. So working with each student individually, faculty individually, and then collectively, so that each person is really pursuing those things that they care about the most. So they're building the strengths, their knowledge and skills in those particular areas with the whole purpose to contribute to this larger world. It isn't about taking a particular class and doing my tests, quizzes, and papers and everything living and dying within that space, within that small community, with that faculty member, but the hopes and the aims that we will connect well beyond our school to projects and initiatives where we will then realize impact and benefiting other people's lives, which then dovetails into student independent research, students designing their own experiential learning programs and experiences so that they can have time to do the field research to then complement their independent research. I remember going to a private conversation that Barack Obama was speaking at, and he was mentioning in this talk that the academic world and industry, that gap is widening every year, that education has not evolved fast enough or in tune enough with the rest of the world. And so my thinking in joining the school was, there are a few outlier students with some really incredible projects and initiatives and companies and research. But how do we design, how do we figure out how to double down on this very, very special element of the school so that everyone has those very personal projects and research?
So how has Dalton evolved with the times in order to close that gap between education and the evolving world?
One of the first initiatives I had was to hire more people from industry. So looking at the full complement of faculty we had, when I arrived, predominantly they were academics. And that's incredible, to find people who have an academic background to such a degree, to such an extent, to such an expertise is really wonderful for our students to then be able to collaborate with and learn from. But what was missing was more people from this industry world, more people from the non-academic world or arena to then complement the research, to then be doing, to then be building, to then be designing and taking apart. So taking these ideas and theories and research and then realizing them in some way. And so hiring more people, a lot of engineers, and I believe we're the only high school in the world that's ever employed a space engineer.
Who is that space engineer?
Jesse, a good friend of mine who's from Toronto, who did his credentialing at York University and is connected to the Canadian Space Agency.
And how did students benefit from their interactions with Jesse as he was a part of the Dalton Academy?
Right. I mean, so Jesse's passion and his network within the space agency sort of realm, if you will, allowed students to see then the mathematics required to play within that space. So now it's not AP Math, IBDP Math, A-levels Math, but it's, if we want to be space engineers, and that's a really kind of broad stroke. I mean, there's so many different specialties and areas within that, right? And it's looking at what kind of math is involved with building satellites or utilizing satellites. What kind of math is involved when we're building rockets or the trajectory of a rocket. And so it's really incredible to unpack and see just sort of how that math talent can be realized. And we have wonderful mathematicians in terms of the student body here and faculty, but to take that math knowledge and skills and to realize it beyond a quiz, a test, and a paper can be challenging. So hiring people like Jesse were incredible, because then we were able to then live the math, to realize the math, and in ways that are really, really exciting.
And have you noticed, since you've implemented these changes, the change in universities that students have been admitted to currently versus 6 or 7 years ago?
There has been a change. There's been a change in the area, in sort of the numbers of interest in wanting to be in our school. So the numbers of students interested in our school have grown from a few hundred annually applying to pushing 5,000 applying to come and be a part of the school and program. And the other thing has been then the output. I mean, that's not particularly something that I don't want to say I don't care a great deal about. That's not why we're designed or we're set up this way. That's an outcome, right? That's a mile marker in life's journey that I have this opportunity or these opportunities. So universities have recognized the academic value and work that we've done, and then the skills well beyond that our students have been able to obtain and to master and to refine. So I think more than anything, they're excited about these projects and initiatives that students are running, faculty are running, collaboratively they're running, or with then people from the larger world, that you don't have to have your degree on the wall before you have the ability to do something significant that other people can benefit from. So I think with the competition increasing in the world and more people from around the globe wanting access to the same few numbers of schools, the traditional story of education is really quite simple, and it's very easy for universities to see and to understand who's talented in your school and who's not, and then all the different complementary standardized exams in addition to the ones that they have in-house. There's so much more happening here, and in most cases, most students, they look the same as their peers. They're taking the same courses, and the only way to differentiate would be then their outcomes. Whereas here, we have students that are designing their own courses, or they're TAs, or they're even teaching fully credited courses. So it's just so much more wide open, so no story and no narrative is going to look anything like anyone else within the school.
Over the course of the next 5 years, what do you hope that Dalton keeps at its core?
I hope that we don't lose sight that we are just so connected to such really talented people and incredible resources in Beijing, in China, and around the world, and that we have the ability to change and better lives. I've seen from our Access Scholarship where we've supported refugees to come to our school. I mean, this was a series of multiple miracles to happen that we were able to realize because of the network, because of the people that are supporting this ecosystem of teaching and learning. I don't want us to lose sight that our students and faculty in real time can better the world, can advance the world. I don't want then the target to become matriculation and universities. Again, that's an output, that's an outcome of the kind of work that we're involved in and a part of. I wouldn't want that narrative to shift and become more traditional or conventional. And it's tough because we're a part of an ecosystem where we're constantly evolving, changing, growing. We have an influx of 33.4% new students every year. And with that comes new ideas, new personalities, new challenges. So you don't know, because that's such a large influx that it drastically changes this ecosystem, this environment. And then we're trying to stay attuned and connected to those that have graduated, or even faculty or staff or people that have moved on. And so we just want to continue to build this network, if you will, again, but purposed to do good work, purpose beyond my own academic or learning journey, credentialing, life, and success LRs. It must be at the core, what are we doing for those that don't have access to the school?
And that fits in quite well, that 33.4% turnover, that churning, because of where we're sitting right now on top of the fertile garden. It's almost a churning of the soil that allows for this growth that we see now in the springtime. The philosophy that Dalton has about educating in a different way, is that something that you hope permeates to different schools that we're connected with through Round Square, or is that something that you think allows Dalton to stand out?
I mean, I hope so. I hope that people see what we're doing as a beacon of light, and we fail forward and we learn and we grow. It's not always a home run when we step up to bat, but it's looking at how can we inspire this course, the content, the knowledge, and the skills in a different way, in a more meaningful way. How do we flip the narrative so that the students are coming prepared and excited, you know? And so it's, again, co-designing courses with them. You're empowering them. They want to be a part of it because you've already included them in the design of the course itself. And if you take an approach like a flipped classroom approach, they're doing the pre-readings in advance. They're coming with the information at hand to be able to then realize it, so that the teacher, in a sense, is more of a player coach. If we're looking at hockey, ice hockey, the coach is on the ice with you, helping you with your particular skill set, with your talent, ability, frame, with the position you play. There's going to be different coaching for each student with their goals of where they're wanting to go as well. So if you take that flipped classroom approach, then how we realize the understanding of the student's ability, readiness, is going to differ, and so is it through Harkness Socratic Seminar? Is it through lab work, project-based, problem-based? There's so many different ways to play in this space of how do I inspire learning. For us, we want the students in the driver's seat. We want them pushing themselves and each other's learning. And I think that too often we get bogged down by the amount of content that we want the students to know and master, or in a way that they can regurgitate that information on different exams. But they rarely have the opportunity to really realize the talent and the abilities that they're learning, that they're growing and enhancing in meaningful ways.
So there's one example of the research grant that I can think of specifically that allows these students to grow organically on their own and develop their ideas. The research grant, 6 students have been awarded funds to pursue their grant, the purposes of their research. Can you share specifically one example of this?
Right. I mean, I'll just back up to why the research grant exists. I mean, it's an opportunity to, again, empower the students to share, to advocate for the kind of research that they're wanting to do, how it's going to impact the larger world, why it's significant, and why we should be investing in them and their ideas, and what resources could we allocate so that they can then be successful in realizing this goal or ambition. And it started from modest roots. Again, so rather than just having a few students, outlier students, doing these things on their own, we want everyone to have access, or at least the opportunity to at least apply, to present their ideas to a panel of community members and stakeholders. And so this has allowed our students to then be able to realize these projects and initiatives. I mean, one that comes to mind, just sitting in the space that we're in, we had a number of students that were interested in the technologies, the traditional technologies that people were using to cultivate and to do agriculture in these rural areas, and thinking that, wow, with simple technology and with solar energy, there's better ways to be more successful in terms of crop yield and I'm trying to think. I'm sort of blanking on the exact specifics, but they were working with the community people in a rural area to determine sort of what are the issues, what are the concerns, what are the limitations to what they have access to,
so
right?
What were the most impactful changes that they made to that community?
Well, I mean, they took the research grant money. There were certain products and materials that they bought, but then they made major tweaks to those resources. Major tweaks, but that it turns out, were simple modifications, but it really enhanced what and how it could be used. So these students then had to start a company, a legal company. They had a patent. They sold then the patent back to the company of which they bought their original products from. And then we're working with this community to then utilize, again, very simple resources that they would have access to then be more successful in terms of that agricultural sort of arena or world that they're in. I mean, that's how they live, that's how they survive, that's how they're providing for one another, getting sort of money and finances, but then also how they're living and surviving. And so the students then have stayed very close with this community. They've been teaching them to be engineers and to be entrepreneurs. So just looking at what they've been doing for generations and helping to work with them or coach them to see different possibilities to be more successful than just sort of surviving every year, every week, every month, but to be, how can we push beyond that?
At the Affiliate High School of Peking University, we value research. The Dalton Academy had made research as one of its main pillars. So we have a department for research. And each of our students at Dalton Academy will complete a 2 full-year research and to get credits for, and have a supervisor, a faculty member, who will help guide them along the way. And it is our honor to then host and celebrate the research by having a ceremony with the top 10 research papers. And we will also host a reception and give it an opportunity for our students to share their journey of research and what impact they had made with their research. So 4 years ago, Dr. Spencer Fowler, our head of school, had actually budgeted aside a research grant opportunity. And what happens is that students will apply for it, and they will have kind of a Shark Tank opportunity where they pitch to our senior leadership team and our department chairs. So fast forwarding to 4 years later, that budget has now nearly tripled. And students apply for it, and they'll again work with the research supervisor to create something more tangible other than a research paper, or to supplement the research paper. And so I want to introduce you to Kelvin today, who is one of our research grant recipients for this year.
Okay, hi.
Would you like to, please introduce yourself.
So, my name is Kelvin. I'm a sophomore, like grade 10 student here at Dalton Academy. And so what happened before Dalton Academy is that I have homeschooled for 3 years from grade 8. And then after 3 years, I got an opportunity to study here at Dalton Academy. And fortunately, and very luckily, I got in. And so that was one of the greatest opportunities and one of the luckiest, best moments that happened to my life, to be able to study at such a prestigious and then at the same time very passionate institute that dedicates to students. And so what I'm currently doing is that I'm currently doing a research project based on exoskeletons and exosuits that explores if it is possible to augment human ability, especially with walking gait, to stabilize gait, and to make people generally stronger, and to make elders generally less susceptible to injuries.
That's so fascinating. So can you tell me what prompted you and what motivated you to apply for the research grant at Dalton?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing is that every project you need money, and so that I apply the budget at Dalton Academy, so not only I can get the material support, but also the faculty support here at Dalton Academy, which they're all very passionate, dedicated to the students. And the second thing is that it allows me to practice this real life opportunity of applying for a research grant, because usually in other schools we can't apply for research grants, and then students don't learn how to use their money and then to explore something like entrepreneurship, something like that. So at Dalton Academy, I'm able to practice this type of activity, and so I'm really grateful that I have it.
And how did you feel during that Shark Tank moment of presenting your pitch to the leadership team?
Definitely nervous, because the moment I remember walking into the room, it is packed with the head of schools of each department, and it is just dead silent. But gradually, when I just start opening my PowerPoint and then to deliver my speech, I gradually began to transfer my attention from the audience, from nervousness to my content, and then I start speaking fluently and making gestures, and then start to become passionate about my project, because the exosuit, the idea is really fascinating. I think that is what really keeps me moving, the passion, the undying passion, and the grit that allows me to continue and without conquering my fear in introducing the project.
Mm-hmm. And so you've been working on a project for months now.
Yeah.
And what are some of the greatest feelings that you get? What are some of the greatest achievements that you've achieved so far these last few months?
Okay, so before I want to talk about the greatest moments, I want to share some not so good moments, but challenges. So my project focuses on 3D technologies such as 3D printing and digital design, as you can see on the printers behind us. A very persistent problem is calibration, so that let's say you're printing with different material, or printing with like PLA, or you're printing with ABS or PTG. They have different properties, and then for different printers and different print settings, or even for different prints, models, they have different properties. So for each of the models, they have to do calibration, and that takes time and effort. It can easily take up to 1 hour to try to print the model and to calibrate the base, the temperature, and all of the parameters that affect the print. And then, so you really need persistence, and you really gotta love what you do in order to have a successful print and to develop the model. And the second thing is that sometimes the model might work fine until a specific point, but there's a concept in design and engineering called local maximum, so that when you get to the optimal design at a specific level, you can't get better. So what you have to do is that you have to first go back to the drawing paper and devise a completely new idea in order to devise an even better idea, even better design. And so I've been through that process for about several times, and it does feel very challenging, depressing. It feels like a huge setback that you have very good design but doesn't perform at the expected level. You have to go back from zero to make a better design. But when you look back at those attempts, you feel that this is really a good decision. Yeah.
And so we've been working with actually Dr. Spencer Fowler as your supervisor, as your guide.
Yes.
What's that relationship like? How often do you meet him, and what's the process like working with a supervisor?
So I'm very grateful because I remember seeing him on social media, on YouTube, on news, being interviewed, and he just looks so amazing. He looks like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm just joking around. But he's really an important person. He sets a huge model for my life, and especially his way of talking, his attitude, and his qualities of grit and persistence, and how he does multiple things, like playing hockey, diving, attempting even triathlon. And those experiences influence him, and then he passed his ideas and his qualities to influence me. And I think that is really important in helping me in solving and being persistent to overcome my problems, especially academically and for the project. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he was indispensable in my journey to here at Dalton Academy, both in admission and here to persist to go this far.
And that's so kind. That's so nice. Could you tell us a bit more about your research? What were some of the resources that you need? Because I know you're also in contact with universities or people from certain universities. Can you share a little bit about who you're in touch with your research, about your research?
So I am in touch with Dr. Frank Locher. So Frank is also one of the guests at the event of the Educational Congress, and so he's a retired Harvard professor, and then he's running a company called Frank Locher Educational Planning that has dozens of employees and around in Boston, in America. And so he is really kind and very affable. The first time I meet him, he directly just communicates with me, and for every week, every Saturday, I have a meeting with him, and then we discuss our plans in communicating with people of this field in top institutions. So we devise this plan of how to network, create this network of people based on the people he knows and based on what the people I want to get in touch with. And the other thing is that wait a second. Yes, the other thing is that Frank Locher provided a lot of advice on how to optimize the resource I have in Dalton Academy, and how I should learn, how I should run my project, and many of the things that he as an experienced learner and educator want me to know, so that I can improve as a student.
Excellent. So what are your next steps in this research project?
the next step. So this project has just gotten started, so that it's been several months now, but this project has a huge potential. Now there has been several models I've done from like my first basic print. You can see in the video later. That's really the small, and then get to better and better prints that utilizes more parts, more complex, and more not only more sophisticated, but at the same time performing better. So the design evolved in different generations, but with the new design, I am confident that it will have the effect that I intended to. So although the most recent design didn't achieve the expected effect, I'm confident that from the feedback of other students, I'm able to design this exosuit that has the desired quality of stabilizing gauge.
So now you've mentioned, how you got started and what motivated you with the applying for the research grant, and you talk about, mentors and the relationships and how they've helped you. What advice do you have for students that would like to apply for a research grant in the future?
Okay, let me think about it. This is a good one for students applying research grants. So my first point is that focus on your passion. So like the research grant is just a method for you to explore your passions, but the first thing is that you must find what you love to do. So like quote Steve Jobs, you gotta love what you work with, because the research grant is not easy to apply with. I actually sacrificed to like homework and something. So
How much time?
So like I slept at 1 or 2 o'clock before the night just to practice with the presentation and with the information, and also got several homeworks too late. But you got to make sacrifice, and that's what makes it hard, challenging, but it's also what makes it worth it. It's not easy to get, but when you're passionate about, when you're interested and dedicated to what you're doing, you will certainly have the ability and the will and the grit to apply for a grant and then succeed. So this is what I want to share.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that it's going to be a major success, and we'd love to see your end product.
This is a series of my designs, and starting from the first one, as you can see, it is a 3D printed exospine. And you see the ears are attached via bolts, and they're free to move by a certain degree of freedom that matches the general shape of the human body. And the second one I'm going to show is the knee bender. So as you can see, these are sliders in the middle. They're fiberglass, and they're extremely flexible but extremely resilient materials. So you add the lubricant, you put it inside here. And you attach that to the leg, one on the thigh and one on the leg. And you bend that. It can support you when you're doing squats and provides a force for you to go upwards. Now the most recent prototype here is the model Delta. So as you can see, this has a very different design. On the side, you see it has a web-like feature made of powder material, like metamaterial, and it's 3D printed. As you can see, this fits really well with the body, but it can also take force from either of these supporters down to these iron strips that act as springs when you move from side to side. So it allows the movement in certain directions and provides support and augmentation, forcing the leg by making the leg to comply to certain directions, but it limits direction in other directions, such as sideways or in torque, so that it prevents the leg from certain injuries like terrible triad or a broken hip or even like a broken back, something like that. And all the parts are fully adjustable. You can adjust the parts from here. You can use the laces from here and also the ones on the leg. And this ensures maximum comfort. And after this, there's going to be new prototypes. And that's all going to be much more advanced and ultimately support humans in the functionalities of augmenting their physicality, mobility, as well as supporting elders and to prevent them from certain injuries, as well as the injured provide ways for the injuries to recover. Yes.
What is one of the most impressive projects that you've seen?
I mean, I'll start with probably one of the most impressive people I've ever met would be Kelvin. Kelvin is this incredible student who went from a traditional school to then homeschooling on his own. And he's just so passionate and he's so unique. And I think that passion that he has is extremely rare. And so any chance he can, he's connecting the knowledge and skills that he's getting from courses or leaning on the faculty, leaning on staff. I think that's the other piece, is just that it's such a supportive environment here that faculty go out of their way or make the time to listen and to help and to support so that these things can actually be actualized. Or if I don't have the knowledge and skills, who within my network could help, or within my network's network, to then help you to realize this. So Kelvin stands out as just being a special person who's so passionate and focused, and he wants to improve people's lives. He's building this exoskeleton to help people who have problems or issues being mobile, you know? And he's just so committed to this project that daily he comes in with different iterations of the design to see how he can improve it. And I just love that it's just this unwavering commitment to want to help people in need. And he's just so passionate and committed to that nothing has stopped him or held him back. And it's just been such an honor to include him in one of the 6 that's getting money and resources to support this really special project.
So who are some of the people in Dalton's extended network that he's been able to reach out to in order to further pursue his project?
I'm grateful that a lot of people that I work with and I'm close with are willing to make the time and also further connect and extend the wonderful people I get to work with here to different people and or projects. And that includes universities. I mean, Dr. Frank Locker is someone that stands out as someone who just has a heart of gold. Dr. Frank Locker was the founder of Learning Environments for Tomorrow, so a trained architect and academic who's been working in this educational space to help redesign the space. And if you redesign the space, you'll change the outcomes, you'll change the journey as well. So Frank has been incredible because he's this additional person outside of the school network who's here supporting our students, Kelvin specifically right now, so coaching, guiding, listening, and then further connecting him to more people and more resources. It's endless when you have that kind of an ecosystem, and more schools need to lower down their walls and connect the people within the school to outside people and outside resources. You know, it's frustrating for me when I hear students in other schools that are tasked with coming up with a company or a product, and it goes nowhere. There was never any intent for it to go anywhere beyond just a poster or a presentation. But the students have the ability. And we're all networked, we're all connected in some way. So the school itself might not have the money or the resources. But we need to lean on other people to help realize these things so that the students shouldn't get used to a life or a world where these things, these concepts, these products, these ideas are just pitched to get a grade and then that's it. And the rest of us aren't able to then benefit from them, their talent, and their ideas.
Because closing thought, what do you think we all benefit from, whether faculty, teachers, or students, from being part of the Dalton Academy community?
I think what we're able to realize is our own value, our sense of self, our sense of self-worth, our sense of what's my purpose here. You know, what am I contributing to? Like if we peel it all back, ultimately, what am I contributing to in the grand scheme of things? How am I really benefiting the larger world? And for me, there's no compromise. I want to be a part of a system, an ecosystem, a family, a community, that the work that we're doing, it has to then extend to benefit other people. And here we've been able to realize that where faculty are doing the same and students are doing the same, and we didn't talk about this, but we don't want faculty teaching a lot, right? So it's between 9 and 12 hours of formal instruction a week. They have office hours, and there's a reason behind it, because we want faculty to have energy and to have the excitement to pursue their own projects, their own research, their own initiatives. So your biology teacher's doing lab research, they are still trying to cure cancer. Immunization research, your English teachers are writing and publishing and speaking, your art teachers are making art, and then we get better connected and acquainted with these different worlds that exist. So now I have access to these other biologists and other writers and food critics and poets and artists and those that have a passion for history or social science. It keeps opening up. But when we only focus on the curriculum, teaching, learning, and standardized exams, then we forego then the rest of the entire world. And so then hence that's that piece that Obama was saying was missing. You have faculty that are so talented, they pursued degrees and credentials in a particular area, then went into education to inspire it, but then they've had to like close the door and move on from participating in this space, where then now they're forced to then just be teaching all day every day and then grading. And so then now they become so distant from it and foreign to the realities of the real world within their area. What we need to do is be empowering and entrusting and setting up the schedule or the ecosystem within the school so that the faculty never lose touch to that area of passion where we want and encourage them to continue to contribute to it. And then in the classroom or lab, how do you re-inspire and differentiate that inspiration so that the students fall in love with this course and this content, the knowledge and skills, again, with the purpose of doing something meaningful with it.
Thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.